It was supposed to be the crown jewel of the season, a dazzling gala led by royals from 2 generations. But within minutes, whispers turned to gasps. Princess Beatrice, radiant and composed hours before, was suddenly seen in tears, escorted out of the royal venue. What had just happened behind those closed palace doors? Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The Windsor Gala has long been more than a social event. It is a symbol of unity, tradition, and royal continuity. Every detail is curated with the precision of a coronation. Every guest a calculated piece in the monarchy's greater chessboard. This year's gala was set to be a turning point, blending the legacy of Queen Elizabeth's vision with the modern image of the House of Windsor. And at the heart of it stood Princess Beatrice, entrusted with one of the event's most critical roles, leading the royal committee overseeing every element of the celebration. For weeks, Beatrice had been in the spotlight, smiling at charity dinners, approving floral arrangements, even previewing parts of the guest list during carefully staged interviews. To all appearances, she was poised for a triumphant return to royal favour. But something shifted the moment Catherine entered the palace that evening. Her arrival was discreet, but unmistakable. Multiple attendees later noted the sudden change in atmosphere. Conversations quieted, aides moved more briskly, and key figures from the royal household abruptly disappeared from the reception floor. Behind the scenes, a message had arrived, a message that would upend Beatrice's world. In the span of less than an hour, Beatrice's name was removed from the official committee. Her duties were reassigned, her access was restricted. No statement, no explanation. One senior palace insider described it as a decision from above, a phrase that raised more questions than answers. Was this Catherine's doing? Or had the order come from even higher, perhaps the king himself, or someone acting in his name? What had Beatrice done to deserve such a public and humiliating dismissal? Moments later, guests caught a glimpse of her slipping away through the eastern corridor, eyes red, face down, refusing even her sister Eugenie's outstretched hand. One observer reported that she had been handed a folded note just moments before. Another claimed she muttered the words, "I didn't know," to a palace aide. And just like that, the woman once expected to modernize the monarchy's softer image had vanished from the very event she helped create. The media didn't miss a beat. By the end of the evening, social networks were ablaze with speculation. Photos of Beatrice's distressed exit were already being analysed by lip readers. Was this a personal vendetta from Catherine? Had a quiet feud finally reached its boiling point? Or was it a long-delayed reckoning linked to Beatrice's ties to more controversial royal figures? But to understand why Catherine made this unthinkable move, we must first explore the hidden tensions bubbling beneath the surface where alliances fracture and royal scars run deep. She walks with grace. But make no mistake, Catherine has become the most powerful woman in the monarchy. With Queen Camilla waning and the king retreating, insiders say it's Catherine calling the shots, and this committee shake-up was just the latest power play. There was a time when Catherine remained in the shadows, always dignified, always deferential, seemingly content with playing the role of supportive wife. But those days are gone. As King Charles grapples with health concerns and Queen Camilla reportedly scales back her engagements, a silent shift has taken hold behind palace walls. It's no longer just William stepping into his father's shadow, it's Catherine steering the ship in the absence of a strong queen. Sources close to the court say her influence over royal event planning has reached unprecedented levels. And the moment Camilla was discreetly sidelined following a series of missteps, Catherine didn't hesitate. She assumed control, not just symbolically, but operationally rewriting the monarchy's visual narrative, one calculated appearance at a time. Behind the scenes, aides whisper about her growing network, young royals, mid-level staffers, even trusted senior advisors, all pledging quiet loyalty to the Princess of Wales. They speak of her work ethic, her precision, and her vision. But what they won't say on record is what everyone now understands. This is Catherine's court, and you either align with the new direction or get left behind. Those who adapt thrive. Those who resist fade quietly into the background. And for some, That fading isn't so quiet. Princess Beatrice, once considered a bridge between the scandal-stained past and a modernized future, has increasingly found herself on the wrong side of this transformation. Her long-standing devotion to her father, Prince Andrew, once viewed as honorable, has since become a liability. Despite palace advisors warning her repeatedly about distancing herself from the controversies that still haunt him, Beatrice refused to waver. She continued to stand by him, even as the firm worked tirelessly to sanitize its image in the public eye. That loyalty, while commendable in private, was now considered dangerous in public. For Catherine, the stakes were far higher than emotion or family ties. Her goal was not just to modernize the monarchy, it was to protect it from internal collapse. And as she rose, it became clear that Beatrice represented everything that threatened to unravel their progress. The Gala committee decision wasn't a reaction, it was a strategy. By removing Beatrice from the spotlight, Catherine sent a clear message. Image is everything, and no one, not even family, is immune from scrutiny. This wasn't an impulsive act. It was a meticulously calculated move, foreshadowed by months of subtle warnings and ignored opportunities for reconciliation. Even those closest to Beatrice now admit there had been moments when she was left out of briefings, shifted to less visible roles, or simply not invited at all. And through it all, Catherine said nothing. She didn't need to. Her silence had more power than confrontation. Beatrice had been warned, and now she had been removed. While Catherine rose, Beatrice's position became more precarious, and it all traces back to a controversial family bond she refused to sever. Behind every tear shed by Princess Beatrice lies a name she cannot escape, Prince Andrew. As her father battles disgrace, Beatrice has remained loyal, but that loyalty may have cost her everything, including her place in the royal spotlight. For Beatrice, family has always come first, often at the expense of public perception. Even in the stormiest days of her father's scandals, she stood by him, arm in arm, in front of flashbulbs and crowds that had long turned cold. She offered no apologies, no strategic distance. To her, he was still dad. But that steadfast love came at a price the palace could no longer afford to pay. Every appearance with Andrew reignited the very controversies the firm had tried so hard to bury. And as the monarchy reshaped itself into something newer, cleaner, more image-conscious under Catherine's rising influence, Beatrice found herself swimming against a tide she refused to acknowledge. Inside the family, whispers turned into quiet confrontations. Senior royals questioned her judgment in private. Some advisors begged her to reconsider her alignment, even suggesting temporary withdrawal from the spotlight. But Beatrice held her ground. She believed that by standing with her father, she was preserving not only his dignity, but hers. What she underestimated was how little room was left in the new monarchy for emotional loyalty when it conflicted with public survival. Catherine, by contrast, understood the ruthless demands of the throne. Where Beatrice saw family, Catherine saw risk. And the deeper Beatrice dug in, the more isolated she became. It wasn't just Catherine who grew uneasy. Behind palace doors, aides debated for months over Beatrice's growing liability. Some argued for discretion, for the sake of family unity. Others, hardened by media pressure and public criticism, insisted the monarchy could no longer afford the stain of association. In their view, Beatrice's proximity to Andrew cast a long and dangerous shadow over every initiative aimed at modernizing the royal image. As the king's energy waned and Queen Camilla faded from center stage, decisions no longer passed through the same filter of tradition. Catherine's circle began drawing the lines, and Beatrice was inching dangerously close to crossing one. Yet Beatrice refused to change course. She dismissed the warnings, leaned further into her duties, and believed that her work, her quiet dedication, would outweigh the controversies swirling around her. But she was mistaken. In this new era, perception was no longer secondary. It was everything. And as the royal machine worked to insulate the younger heirs, George, Charlotte, Louis, from inherited scandal, Beatrice found herself standing on increasingly fragile ground. The strategy was clear. elevate the next generation by cutting away the last remnants of reputational threat. That meant distancing from Andrew, and by extension, from anyone who stood beside him. Beatrice's devotion, once seen as admirable, was now viewed as defiance. She had become an unintentional symbol of the past the palace was desperate to bury. Her fall from grace wasn't the result of a single misstep, but a slow, painful accumulation of choices rooted in love, colliding with a monarchy rooted in survival. And the most heartbreaking part, she never saw it coming. But even as Beatrice struggled to shield her father's legacy, she was unaware of a private meeting that would seal her fate. 4 days before the gala, a closed-door meeting took place at Kensington Palace. Only 3 people were in the room: Catherine, a senior royal advisor, and one unexpected guest with a chilling ultimatum. The topic? Beatrice's future. The urgency was palpable. Security and public affairs advisors had raised red flags that could no longer be ignored. Reports had been quietly circulating for weeks, some whispering of Beatrice's potential entanglement in unresolved financial matters, ties that, while not illegal, reeked of poor judgment and damaging optics. It wasn't just about Andrew anymore. There were questions, patterns, and connections that made the palace increasingly uneasy, especially as the gala, a globally publicized royal showcase, approached. The House of Windsor couldn't afford another scandal bubbling beneath the surface, least of all with the world watching. So, an extraordinary session was called behind locked doors, and Catherine, now the effective head of strategic image operations, took her place at the center of the storm. At first, she hesitated. Catherine wasn't known for rash decisions, and sidelining a royal, even a peripheral one like Beatrice, was a nuclear move. But as documents were quietly slid across the table, as names and numbers were laid out like pieces of a puzzle, Catherine's demeanor changed. Her eyes narrowed, her hands folded. The silence in the room grew heavier. Beatrice wasn't just a potential liability, she was, in the words of one advisor, a pending crisis. And then came the unexpected voice in the room. A high-level figure from the sovereign's private council had been asked to join discreetly. Arriving late and speaking only once, their words were sharp and final. If this isn't handled now, we will have a storm that no statement can fix. Camilla's absence had left a vacuum. The Queen's recent retreat from public duties meant that for the first time, Catherine had the full weight of decision-making resting solely on her. No buffers, no mediators, just her instinct, her authority, and her role as the Crown's most visible female force. The royal machine needed clarity, so a list was drawn, an internal chart titled Optics Risks, and at the very top of that list was Princess Beatrice. Not for what she had done, but for what she represented, an unresolved link to an era the monarchy was desperate to escape. And then the verdict came. Cold, calculated, final. Beatrice would be removed from her position on the Gala committee before the event. No explanation would be given publicly. No warning would be offered privately. It would be handled quietly, surgically, and without room for reversal. A royal aide was instructed to prepare the official chain of action, ensuring the press release could be modified at the last minute should questions arise. And just like that, Beatrice's fate was sealed not by confrontation or scandal, but by strategy and silence. And yet, as the decision took shape in private, Beatrice remained blissfully unaware until a single message shattered her world. It wasn't a formal letter, it wasn't a call. It was a single, cold text message from the palace's event liaison. Beatrice read it twice. Then once more. Her hands shook, and before she could even react, the decision had already reached the media. The message was brutally sterile, stripped of empathy or explanation. Your services regarding the Windsor Gala committee have been concluded. Thank you for your time. That was it. No signature, no warmth, just a severance dressed up in bureaucracy. Beatrice, who had spent weeks investing her energy, her name, her loyalty into the very fabric of this royal event, was cast aside like an afterthought. An insider close to her later revealed that in that moment, she couldn't breathe. She clutched her phone as though hoping the screen would change, offer a correction, a clarification, something to suggest it was a mistake. But it wasn't. Within minutes, headlines began to swirl. Beatrice dismissed from Gala committee. Desperation overtook her dignity. Beatrice reached out to Catherine directly, dialing her number in a daze. Once, then twice. Voicemail. No response. Not even a courtesy acknowledgement. For a woman raised in the corridors of royalty, that silence was louder than any scandal. It was the sound of the gates closing, the finality of exile disguised as policy. She turned to the one person she knew would come, Eugenie. Her sister arrived swiftly and furiously, pushing through staff lines, demanding to know who authorized the message. But by then, it was already out of their hands. Palace aides had gone into immediate lockdown, their phones off, their lips sealed. There would be no explanations, no leaks, no reversals. The order had come from above, and no one was foolish enough to challenge the chain of command. Eugenie's confrontation with the staff was brief, volatile, and ultimately fruitless. She demanded answers and was met with blank faces. No one would speak. Protocol had triumphed over empathy, and the emotional fallout was left to Beatrice to bear alone. Word spread like wildfire that the princess had been dismissed, and before long, one rogue photographer, lingering by the private service exit, captured the moment that would define the night. Beatrice, tear-streaked and pale, slipping into a waiting car. That single image, frozen in time, became a symbol of something much larger. The public didn't just see a princess in pain, they saw a system in motion, a quiet but deliberate cleansing of the royal ranks. And while that image was dissected, shared, and speculated upon across every media platform, another conversation was taking place behind closed doors, one that praised not the pain, but the precision. Catherine's name surfaced repeatedly, not in scandal, but in admiration. Senior royals whispered approval of her decisiveness. She had acted swiftly, cleanly, and without hesitation. In their eyes, she had done what needed to be done. A painful cut, but one that would heal the monarchy's image. But as the image of a broken Beatrice spread across social media, Catherine was already being hailed by senior royals for her ruthless efficiency. While Beatrice wept, Eugenie ignited. Sources say she stormed into a restricted wing of Kensington Palace, demanding answers. What unfolded next was a fiery confrontation that no aide saw coming. Eugenie versus Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Eugenie had always been the quieter of the two sisters, less visible, less scrutinized, but when it came to defending Beatrice, she was a force no one anticipated. Fueled by a mix of rage and heartbreak, she bypassed protocol, flanked by no aides, pushing through corridors where only senior royals were permitted. What she found behind that closed door was Catherine collected, unreadable, surrounded by her inner circle. Eugenie didn't hesitate. She demanded an explanation. Her voice, according to one shaken staffer, echoed through the marble hallway. She accused the palace of betrayal, of cruelty, of discarding her sister like a political liability. And in that moment, all the calm, all the etiquette drilled into her since birth, evaporated. Catherine listened, not with anger, nor with disdain, but with the kind of chilling clarity that had become her signature. She let Eugenie speak. She let the emotion burn. And then she delivered the words that froze the room. This isn't personal. It's necessary. Catherine was no longer just a figurehead in the shadows of the crown. She was the architect of the monarchy's future, and there would be no tolerance for sentiment that endangered the institution's survival. Her tone was not cruel, but it was final. In that moment, it became clear to all present that Catherine had embraced a level of authority many believed she would never seek, and even fewer believed she would wield with such sharp precision. A senior aide, sensing the confrontation spiraling beyond control, stepped between the women and made the call no one wanted to make. Eugenie was escorted out, not forcibly, but clearly. It was a warning masked as procedure, and that warning didn't end in the hallway. Within hours, private communication from the firm reached Eugenie's residence. It didn't threaten, but it did advise. Another breach of protocol would result in reassessment of her engagements and visibility. The message was clear: speak out again, and you'll be next. Since that night, Eugenie has remained silent. No posts, no public outings, no statements. Her absence has been loud, deliberate, and telling. And while Beatrice continues to bear the emotional cost of her dismissal, it's Eugenie who carries the weight of having crossed an invisible line few royals dare to approach. Behind palace doors, the narrative is being reframed. Catherine as the protector of the crown, Eugenie as the emotional insurgent, and Beatrice as collateral damage in a larger war of image versus legacy. But even as tensions raged internally, the public watched with growing curiosity, and some royal loyalists began to dig deeper into Catherine's real endgame. A quiet purge is underway, masked as modernization. Behind the gilded doors, Catherine is assembling her own trusted circle, and those who don't fit the vision are being quietly exiled. Beatrice may be just the beginning. Over the past 12 months, the royal roster has been steadily shrinking. Familiar faces have vanished from events, advisory roles have shifted, and long-standing titles have been quietly retired without fanfare or farewell. The public sees rebranding. Insiders know better. This is Catherine's silent campaign, a strategic reset designed to cut loose the weight of the past and lift only those who align with her vision of a cleaner, leaner, future-proof monarchy. The rules have changed. Blood is no longer the ticket to prominence, loyalty is. And even more crucially, discretion. The Princess of Wales, now wielding influence with surgical precision, has made it clear. Sentiment will not stand in the way of progress. Behind closed doors, palace staff have been briefed in no uncertain terms. Adapt or step aside is no longer a whispered caution, it's a directive. New faces in the royal inner circle are vetted not just for experience but for alignment. They must understand the stakes. In this new era, one misstep can unravel decades of reputation. Catherine isn't just choosing who gets seen, she's deciding who gets remembered. And under this calculated approach, names once thought untouchable are quietly being reconsidered. Beatrice was not removed on a whim, she was removed as a signal, a symbol of what happens when legacy becomes liability. Even William, long viewed as the more restrained of the two, is said to be fully aligned with the strategy. His long-term succession planning depends on a firm unburdened by scandal or emotional hesitation. Every decision made now, every reshuffling of titles, every event snub, every subtle demotion is part of a blueprint for the monarchy that his children will one day inherit. And that blueprint leaves little room for unresolved affiliations, emotional entanglements, or inherited controversy. Beatrice, with her stubborn devotion to her disgraced father and refusal to evolve in line with palace optics, fit the exact profile of someone who could no longer be trusted to carry the brand forward. But she's not alone. Whispered names echo through the halls. Zara, Peter, even the once protected Lady Louise. Each represents a potential fissure, a risk, or simply an outdated image that no longer fits the evolving royal narrative. None have been officially sidelined, but the pattern is clear. Fewer public appearances, less press visibility, roles being re-evaluated. The shift is happening not in dramatic gestures, but in the slow, deliberate re-engineering of power. And Catherine is the architect behind it all, her influence now rivaling that of monarchs past, her authority extending far beyond the expectations once placed on her. And yet, through all this quiet orchestration, one figure has remained utterly silent until now. For weeks, King Charles said nothing. But today, as murmurs of royal division reached a boiling point, he issued a cryptic but powerful statement. And though no names were mentioned, everyone knew exactly who he meant. Standing before a gathering of Commonwealth representatives, King Charles spoke of modernization and legacy. Carefully crafted words that masked a storm of emotions beneath their polished surface. He called for a monarchy that was leaner, forward-facing, and rooted in service rather than sentiment. On the surface, it was a generic message. But within the palace, insiders read between the lines with surgical precision. The omission of names spoke louder than the names themselves. There was no mention of Beatrice, no nod to her decades of quiet service, no acknowledgement of her recent exclusion. Instead, the monarch lavished praise on those who lead with grace and strength through difficult transitions, a line many believed was aimed squarely at Catherine. For Beatrice, the silence cut deeper than a direct rebuke. She had grown up under the protective shadow of her father, a beloved son of the Queen. And despite the scandals that later consumed him, her loyalty to the family and the crown had remained unwavering. She had endured the shifting tides of royal perception, never asking for more than a seat at the table. Yet now, as the monarch addressed the future of the institution she had sacrificed for, her name was nowhere to be found. According to one source close to her circle, she watched the speech alone, lips trembling, heart heavy. It wasn't what was said, it was what wasn't. That absence spoke of abandonment. Charles's position is more complicated than most know. He has long harbored affection for Beatrice, once viewing her as a bridge between the royal legacy and a generation seeking purpose beyond titles. But in recent years, especially under increasing pressure to adapt the firm to survive the 21st century, even he has been forced to compromise sentiment in favor of strategy. The crown no longer has room for emotional debts. Catherine's rise, once seen as complementary, is now dominant, and as William's influence grows, so too does the pressure on Charles to ensure the monarchy's internal structure reflects its external messaging. His speech wasn't merely ceremonial, it was a calculated nod to the future he's trying to preserve, even if it comes at the expense of those he once protected. For palace insiders, the message was received clearly. Catherine has the monarch's silent backing. Her moves, no matter how controversial, align with the king's long-term vision. Those unwilling to evolve with the new order will not be publicly condemned, but they will be left behind. And for Beatrice, that quiet exclusion echoed more painfully than any formal dismissal. It signaled that her era had ended not with disgrace, but with irrelevance. But just when the dust seemed ready to settle, an unexpected voice emerged, threatening to unravel everything Catherine had built. In a rare move, Queen Camilla made a late-night visit to Clarence's house. The following morning, a single handwritten letter appeared on Catherine's desk, its contents confidential. But a source close to the Queen leaked just one line: "Do not mistake silence for absence." It was a phrase that rippled through the palace like a cold wind. After weeks of uncharacteristic silence, Camilla's sudden re-emergence caught everyone off guard. While Catherine had taken the reins and executed a sweeping restructure of the royal image, Camilla had retreated, her absence mistaken by many as resignation. But those who know her best say she's not one to exit without leaving a shadow behind. Behind closed doors, there have been whispers of unease, of disapproval, and of a queen who may have grown wary of the speed and severity of Catherine's consolidation of power. For years, Camilla fought tooth and nail for her place in the royal hierarchy. To watch another woman rise so swiftly and assertively may have struck a nerve that could no longer be ignored. No one has publicly seen the contents of that letter, but insiders claim its tone was cool, direct, and distinctly unyielding. A private warning? A veiled threat? Or perhaps a reminder to Catherine that not all crowns are inherited quietly. The fact that the message was handwritten and hand-delivered spoke volumes. This wasn't a formal declaration, it was personal. Royal watchers have begun piecing together the unspoken dynamics. A pattern emerges: a late-night conversation between Camilla and an unnamed aide known to have long favoured Beatrice, a sudden shift in Beatrice's public demeanour, followed by Camilla's abrupt departure from an event she was scheduled to attend. These moments, seemingly scattered, now take on a far more strategic hue. Some speculate that Camilla, long underestimated and recently overshadowed, may be quietly aligning herself with Beatrice. Not as a sentimental gesture, but as a counterbalance. Beatrice, once discarded, may now hold symbolic value as the antithesis of Catherine's reign. Could the Queen and the fallen princess find common ground in their shared exclusion? And if so, what might that alliance mean for the delicate balance Catherine has worked so ruthlessly to establish? The monarchy has endured rivalries before, But this one brews beneath the surface an unspoken cold war between two women who once stood beside the throne, but now stand on opposite ends of power. All eyes now turn to the next state event, where both Catherine and Camilla are expected to appear. Will it be a moment of unity, or the spark that ignites the firestorm? Palace aides remain tight-lipped, but one thing is clear. The firm is no longer a sanctuary of stability, it is a battlefield of narratives. Every glance, every absence, every word not said now holds the weight of history behind it. The silence, once dismissed, is now louder than ever. As the monarchy hurtles toward transformation, only one truth remains. Behind every title lies a throne of glass, and cracks are beginning to show. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.